I was called a trespasser on my own land. Imagine that, standing on the porch of the ranch my grandfather bought in 1962, deed in my hand, and some woman in a navy blazer screaming that I was breaking HOA rules on property that wasn't even inside her HOA. She waved around fake genealogy charts, claimed her great-great-grandmother was buried under my oak tree, and announced to half the neighborhood that I was desecrating sacred ground. I can still hear her voice echoing across the fields, that shrill edge that makes you question for a split second if maybe you've actually lost your mind. 2 months earlier, I had buried my grandfather and inherited his land, 25 acres of rolling hills, moss-draped oaks, the kind of peace you can't put a price on. After years of apartment walls and traffic noise, moving here felt like breathing again. And then, before I could even finish unpacking, she came storming in. Catherine Stone, president of the Sunset Valley Estates HOA, full makeup at 7 a.m., marching across my gravel drive like she was leading a parade. She had HOA pins lined up on her blazer like military medals, a clipboard bristling with tabs, and those ridiculous family tree charts laminated like sacred documents. She jabbed a finger toward my house and shouted, "Get off my family's land." The humiliating part wasn't just her words. It was the audience. Curtains twitched open all down the street, neighbors holding up phones pretending to text while recording me getting screamed at on my own ranch. I stood there clutching my coffee mug, my hand trembling so much I spilled it down my wrist. Anger, yes, but also this sick humiliation, because I knew the truth didn't matter to the crowd. They'd only remember the shouting. What she didn't realize was that I had done my homework. Every boundary survey, every tax record, every county clerk statement, everything proved my ranch sat completely outside their HOA. The cemetery board had confirmed no burials anywhere near my property. But logic had no seat at Catherine's theater. She stormed off after 20 minutes, vowing to return daily until this historical injustice was corrected. Historical injustice about land my family owned before she was born. That evening, when I finally thought the nightmare was over, I found a folded note tucked under my windshield wiper. No signature, no phone number. Just, "She's not what she seems." A restraining order prevents direct contact. A friend. My blood ran cold. Who leaves a note like that? Someone who knew her. Someone who couldn't speak openly. Suddenly, it wasn't just me against a lunatic HOA president. It was me caught in something much darker. The next morning, Catherine returned, this time in full Victorian morning dress, black veil, antique jewelry, a leather-bound journal. She set up a little altar on my property line, arranging props like she was auditioning for a community theater play. At 7 sharp, she raised her arms to the sky and wailed so loud the dogs started howling. Neighbors stopped jogging to watch. She wasn't improvising, she had rehearsed every gesture. That's when I met Tommy, the retired mechanic across the street. He leaned on his porch rail with a chipped World's Best Dad mug, muttering about her divorce settlement and all the delivery trucks dropping off costumes. "Went from garden tools to Victorian gowns overnight," he said with a weary grin. He wasn't shocked, just resigned, like a man forced to live across from a circus he never bought tickets for. But the circus had a darker ringmaster. Another anonymous envelope appeared under my wiper. This one a detailed schedule of Catherine's morning routine down to the minute. 6:30 mirror practice, 6:45 makeup in the car, 7:05 begin screaming. Along with the schedule were photos, clear shots of her through open curtains, props laid out on her clothesline, even her tossing wedding photos in the trash. Whoever was watching her wasn't just a nosy neighbor. This was surveillance. Professional. I started to doubt myself. Was I overreacting? Maybe Catherine was just a broken woman spinning out after a messy divorce. I'd inherited peace. She'd inherited chaos. Was it cruel of me to fight her so hard? There was a night I sat on my porch and actually thought, maybe I should sell the ranch, walk away, let her keep her fantasy. That thought burned in my gut. My grandfather worked his whole life for this land, and here I was ready to hand it to a woman with laminated lies. The next day snapped me out of it. Catherine arrived with a metal detector, theatrically sweeping my fence line. She planted cheap jewelry in the dirt, then discovered it while gasping for the neighbors. I laughed, but the third envelope wasn't funny. Inside were psychological reports, clinical language about performance routines compensating for loss of domestic authority. Notes on her nightly mirror practice her obsession with costumes. It was intimate, like someone had lived with her. And then I saw his name. Male mixed in with her camping gear. David Miller, her ex-husband. Suddenly, every clue aligned. The restraining order, the insider knowledge, the careful handwriting on the notes. David was watching her. He couldn't approach her legally, so he watched from the shadows and fed me intel. Meanwhile, Catherine escalated. She pitched a tent at my property line, brought a cooler, a lantern, even a portable toilet. She declared herself on eternal vigil until I confessed my crimes. Then came the megaphone hourly violation alerts, genealogy readings, late-night rants about sacred ancestors. It echoed for blocks. Neighbors started calling it Radio Catherine. Local news showed up. The segment went viral online: camping. Karen claims ancestral burial rites, and the world laughed while we lived the nightmare. By then I was exhausted, hollowed out by constant noise and confrontation. But the notes kept coming. David's handwriting became almost clinical predictions of her escalation analysis of her psychological state. He warned me she was nearing collapse. He was right. On the 72nd hour of her non-stop vigil, Catherine was ragged, hoarse voice, sunken eyes, shaking hands, clutching the megaphone. County Mental Health Services arrived with paramedics and a crisis counselor. They approached, gently asking if she needed help. She scrambled onto my fence, shrieking into the megaphone, "I am the high priestess of ancestral guardians. You're all desecrators. My husband betrayed me, documented everything. He's watching me right now." The counselor tried to calm her, but Catherine spiraled, ranting about divine authority, constitutional rights, neighbors conspiring against her. She shouted that her ex-husband knew all her weaknesses, that he was plotting revenge. And I stood there realizing she was half right. David was watching, but not for revenge, for protection. 2 hours of negotiation later, Catherine's body finally gave out. Exhausted, dehydrated, she agreed to a voluntary mental health evaluation. As the paramedics helped her down, her purse spilled. Divorce papers fluttered across the dirt. David Miller's name stared back at me, his address in clear print. The neighborhood fell silent for the first time in weeks. Curtains opened, people stepped out, the air itself felt stunned. And then I saw him across the parking lot of the county facility later that day. Middle-aged, tired eyes, the weight of months etched on his face. He walked toward me, slowly extended his hand and said, "Kevin, I'm David Miller. I've been your anonymous helper for the past 3 weeks." I shook his hand, still reeling. It all made sense. The detailed notes, the surveillance photos, the psychological analysis, he'd lived it. Married to her for 6 months, destroyed by her obsession, then legally forbidden from contact. But he couldn't stand by and watch another person become her target. So he warned me the only way he could, anonymously from the shadows. Catherine was taken into care. The HOA apologized for letting it spiral so far. The neighbors, once silent behind curtains, finally spoke to me face to face, and I was left staring at my grandfather's land, knowing it had almost been stolen not by law, but by theater, by a woman so lost in her delusions she turned a property line into a stage. This whole nightmare taught me something I'll never forget. Sometimes the loudest person in the room is the one most detached from reality. And the only way to hold on to what's yours is to refuse to play their script.